Well, we're here, Mega. We're here once again.
Are we here? Are we live? You hit the button?
We're live. We hit the buttons. This time is a mouse click, so there's that going on. Okay. Yeah. So we're just talking about life and what we have planned for this and other things. So it's a lot of fun. So.
Yeah, no doubt. So, okay, all right. Well, welcome everybody. We're here. You know what I'm saying? I'm used to pressing buttons on my own, but you know what I'm saying? Since we got like this crazy intercontinental, I don't know, you know what I'm saying, Oklahoma, Utah thing going on right now.
It's almost a football's throw away, man. Like we're not too far away.
It's really not that far. It's not that far away.
You know, like shit, man. Like, you know, we play with people on the East Coast. I'm like, what time is it over there? What?
Yeah, what?
What
time is it? Damn. Okay, anyway, but what's going on, everybody? Devin the Gamer is back. I know that you've not seen this beautiful face in so long. I apologize. I'm a fraud. I've been saying I was going to do this streaming. I was going to do fight night, everything. I haven't streamed and did anything in like a month, except for GRG and being on the next podcast. But other than that, like, man, had so many doctor's appointments, man. I just got, and I'm also caught up into Persona.
But you're getting better though.
Persona 5.
You're getting better. Like
I'm getting better.
Yeah, a little bit more like the $1 Million Man, but you're getting better. Like
yeah. I'm getting better, but it's just, you know, all these doctor's appointments, and then I'm like, and then now I'm caught up into Persona, and you know how if I get caught up into a game, so it's like, you know what I'm saying, it's going to be difficult. But I do plan on getting fulfilling my promises. I just
we're gonna get on that co-op train a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, see, here's the thing. Mega's my go-to when we do co-op games, and for the most part, I feel like I'm the same way. Like since we've hung out with each other, right?
Right.
But I've learned when Mega is into a game, you just let him be. Just let him finish. Just let him finish. Right?
Let me be.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, we're more or less doing that. So it's interesting to say the least. But
well, and I'm not buying any games in November except for maybe one, and that would be Evil West. And I don't know if I'm going to, because we're going to get back into Halo. I mean, because the update's coming up here.
Yeah, co-ops
here in
next week.
Of days. Yeah. And
or
then,
this week.
Battlefield is going to get their. You're going to get their major update. I'm going to be back on Battlefield, and then, I mean, anything else that's available. So that's why for the games that I have not got yet to play, like, I mean, Batman, or I should say Gotham Knights. I mean, I started it, and then I'm like, but I'm still going to stream that. So I'm going to start all over.
Wait, you can play a game that only has 30 frames per second?
Oh, absolutely. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, I didn't know you're one of those gamers that can actually do it, because I'm one of those gamers too. So
really, I did not know.
Yeah,
I thought that was a Lost with a Dinosaur. I didn't know. I thought that maybe it was just only
as somebody that drinks the finest of strawberry sodas, right? You know, like the finer things in life, right?
Right.
You know, I can play a game at 30 frames per second and enjoy it. Have a smile on the face. You know,
absolutely.
Right? Like, you know, that's the beauty of streaming that sort of stuff. There's always going to be, out there people that have, I don't know, we'll talk about. There's a lot to talk about on that stuff.
Oh, there's a lot to talk. Yeah, we got things that we got to catch up on, talk about, then stuff that's popped up new today, which was the PlayStation VR 2 price being revealed. So yeah, I mean, I'm going to have some interesting takes. I can't wait to hear what you got to say about it, Don. But other than that, let's go ahead and get started, man. So other than what you've been doing, Don, how's everything been going? I know it's been a while since we did Devin the Gamer, but in between then, what games you've been playing? What else you been going?
I've been playing, making videos for the YouTube channel and getting that backlog going. So once I start releasing content, it's consistent for my audience. In regards to that, so you know, I have 3 videos almost done, working on the 4th, and also been setting up the space that I'm in working. You know, you see me in right now. I mean, it's a green screen, so you can't tell what's going on. But I'm going to be doing a studio tour of once I finish up the space, in regards to that. So that's something I've been working on, and you know, on games, I just been streaming whatever I feel like playing on the fly, right? I've been getting on a Gears kick again. Gears is still one of my still one of my favorite franchises. I get on to like I felt bad. I got on, usually Gears is a rough, like you get on the multiplayer,
Mm-hmm.
and if you haven't played in a while, usually you're,
Oh yeah, you
it's
get
it's a
rusty.
humbling
Yeah, you get
experience,
rusty.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I I I played 4 or 5 rounds recently, and it was the opposite. I only died like I remember one round I only died once the whole
Okay.
entire round.
Wow.
Yeah, it's so yeah. There's a I will say this: at the time though I was playing, I'm pretty sure the people that it was kind of unfair. The people I was playing against had a really high ping for whatever reason. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. Um, and then the people that are on my team were all like 20, 30, pretty reasonable pings in regards to that. So it was interesting to say the least in regards to that. But no, Gears is still one of those, like, it's multiplayer. People always complain about it's like a shotgun fest, but man, it's the funnest shotgun fest out there. Gaming,
Oh
it's
yeah,
a lot of
yeah,
fun,
yeah.
man.
No doubt
I,
about
re-
it.
I really enjoy it.
And
So
it's one of the most unique shooters out there. I mean, like Halo. Like, I mean, there's no game that compares to Halo or Gears at all. And that's why I think that those games will last the test of time.
yeah, they should
Um,
always be like a cover-based shooter. It should always be
mhm.
the it doesn't mean you can't evolve or make it
Or
more
tweak,
more
right?
refinement and things like that. But it is one of those games that it's so good at what it does. Other people just don't bother to emulate because they don't want to be compared to it. In
Right.
regards to that, so it's Then again, it's one of my favorites. Doesn't have to be everyone else's favorite, of course. But it is. And I just love the characters in that damn game. Like they're not afraid to just make characters and use the technology in a way that we can have a very unique cast across the board. In regards to it's not agenda based. It's just like the technology allows us to do it, so let's have the creative freedom and do it. And I think that's always the best way when you present characters in regards to
Hmm.
everything. And I think it's the fairest way. And sometimes they'll may not get it right. And sometimes they may ruffle some feathers, but that's part of the process, I think, until we get to the point where everyone kind of feels comfortable. So I think Gears does it the best when it comes to having very unique characters across the board, and not
Oh
afraid.
yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt
Yeah,
about it.
yeah,
I
they're
like that.
pioneers, right? I mean, if you think
Right. Yeah.
about it. So
Yeah. No. There. Gears is a special franchise. I mean, I still prefer Halo over Gears, but
that's fine.
there's no denying the greatness of Gears. And also, I would say within this stretch, um, from when Gears 4 to now Gear 5, Hive Busters, it has had a better stretch than what Halo's had, in my opinion. I mean, said Halo 5 is still my favorite Halo. Not overall, because Halo 2 is my favorite overall, but
It's had less
but
missteps, is what you're saying,
yeah,
more or
yeah,
less.
that's
Yeah.
basically had less missteps. But now since we got into this part with now just with Infinite and then just the time period in between, Gears is definitely to me has surpassed Halo for now. We'll see where Halo ends up. But that's just my opinion. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure that there will
I
be people that have
what
different
is
opinions
there was
about
that
what
one
Gears is.
Gears that didn't go
That was
for
that was on a 360 though.
Judgment.
Yeah,
That was
that was
Judgment.
Judgment. Yeah,
So, but I'm
yeah.
saying even
And it
like
wasn't even
even
made by the same, right? It wasn't even made by the coalition at that time or whoever that.
well, it was
Because I forgot
Epic.
what their name was. It was
Yes.
Epic.
So
Okay,
so
okay.
Epic was the original, and then Epic partnered with People May Fly.
I was
Uh,
gonna say People May Fly was the one that made that one.
yeah,
Right.
because they did some other game called Bulletstorm with them, and
Bulletstorm was fire though. That
that
was a
game,
really good
that
game.
game, I wish there was a sequel to it, but I don't
I
think
wish there
we're ever
was
gonna.
co-op in that game.
Oh,
That game would be. I,
I
I
don't
would
know.
love to go back and play that.
Yeah, I don't. That would be a mess in co-op, but in a
Ah,
good
that would be
way.
fantastic.
In a good way.
Yes, yes,
So,
yes.
but no, I mean, and I like People May Fly. They make the what was that?
Outriders.
Outriders. So
Yeah.
they're very creative with the play mechanics and the guns
Mm-hmm.
in regards to that. I don't think they were a good match for Gears, to be honest with you, because Gears has a formula, right? And
Right, right.
and they want to be outside of that box, and
It just wasn't a good
they're
look
they're
overall.
there's a studio that's, I look at them as more of they're better pioneering things than they are taking an existing franchise and working on it, sort of thing. So I
I
have
can
a
agree with
I
that.
have a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
respect
no.
for people Mayfly. I think they're a studio to look out for over time, for sure.
Right. Yeah. No. If they, you know, I mean, regardless of the shortcomings of what Outriders did or had at the launch, they've made up for it. And I mean, look, Outriders is just one of those games you just jump in, you have fun. You might not be totally invested into the story, but it does have a story. But the gameplay and the way that and as fun as the game feels, that can't be denied. So I agree with you 100%. I mean, they're a studio that needs to be looked out for and probably supported better. And probably get bigger budget games
If
because I would like to see what they would make
if I
if
was a
they had that
publisher
opportunity.
or a
Hmm.
platform provider, that they would be on my ticket to try to acquire as a
Mm.
studio.
I can see that. I
In
can see
regards
that.
to that, because imagine to give them a little bit more budget, give them the resources they need, and you'll get some of the most clever, creative stuff. I think in regards to that, it makes you stand out as a publisher or a platform provider or whatever it may be. I mean, I think their last one was with Square Enix. Before that, Bulletstorm was with EA. And then they also worked with Microsoft. I don't know what other stuff they've done, but yeah. So
Right. Yeah. No, they got a good. Their track record is better than it is
worse.
for like Judgment. And
Yeah,
Judgment, like it played well. It just didn't, like you said, match
it
the
didn't
Gears
play good
concept.
Gears.
Right. Right.
In
Right.
regards to
Right.
that, if
Yeah.
it was its
They
own
tried to be
standalone
completely unique,
thing,
and then
yeah.
right.
So
Yeah. So anyway, all right. So let's get on to something. Normally we kind of hold these type of topics for later, but I kind of want to jump into this because we got to kind of catch up on some other stuff. So let's talk about Call of Duty right now. And also, well, before I do that, I got to say this because there's a rumor going on about and me and Xbot 448 has a bet and about The Last of Us, the multiplayer game. Well, that rumor has popped up. I think it was yesterday. That eh, well, I guess I should explain the bet first. The bet was that bot was saying that they were going to charge $50, 50 to whatever, 50, $60 for the game. I said that game was going to be free to play. There's no way that they're going to bring a game out that they've already had and not implemented into um if this game was already implemented in the first title. It would, yeah, they could wait a couple of years to maybe charge people for it, but for getting people on board with the struggles of how, in the sense of PlayStation's first party having online games, it would benefit them to make that game a free to play. Well, I said that I think is most likely going to be free to play. Bot said the other thing. So we had a bet like one of us would buy a game or whatever, right? So at first it looked like I was going to lose the bet because there was rumors that started off saying that they were going to charge, but I think that came from like PlayStation sources.
okay,
This is coming from actually Naughty Dog on their website that they're looking for developers who are experts in uh, free to play multiplayer gaming. So I'm like, oh. So anyway, I'm not going to be on the next podcast tomorrow night, but I definitely going to have to throw that shade at bot. Like, hold on,
you,
remember our
are
bet.
are you counting that chicken for the hatch, or are you just reminding
Well,
them?
I just want to remind him because he did it to me a couple of weeks ago. Once like whatever got leaked or talked about or whatever from source, he threw that up at me and said, "Hey, remember our bet?" So I'm gonna have to do the same thing. But other than that, like I think that's gonna be fun. So Xbox 448, get ready. I'll let you know what game I want
So what's
here
this have to do with
coming in
Call of Duty?
2023. Well, I know I just had to say that first, but let's go to Call of Duty. All right, so Call of Duty was a lot of people were skeptical of Call of Duty this, Call of Duty that were on sales. There were people that was going to boycott because of the whole Activision, Xbox or Microsoft Activision deal or whatever.
Okay.
Well, it sold 800 million. It earned $800 million in a week. So that should tell you right there. Call of Duty is stronger than it's ever been. This was a really anticipated title for them, and it far surpassed what Vanguard did, which Vanguard was a kind of a low point for them, even though they were number one for the whole year.
Yeah, that makes
But
sense.
yeah, right. But this is what I found interesting, right? Because you know that there was an interview with Phil Spencer. Phil Spencer, of course, he keeps reiterating that COD will remain on PlayStation, but there's been kind of a well, they'll stay on here from comparing to what Sony off showed or told us. Well, I should say tell us, but told the CMAs, told Brazil, told all these other countries of what Microsoft's proposal was of keeping Call of Duty on PlayStation for what looks like to be the remainder of this generation. Phil Spencer came out and said that as long as PlayStation is still viable, Call of Duty will remain on PlayStation. I don't believe that. I personally don't believe that. So I got to ask you this question, Don. What do you think? I mean, I think this is more, posturing. This is a strategy, of course, to try to get through the CMA, being so hard lined against them right now, and to try to have cooler heads prevail and then just do what they want to after the deal is over. I still feel that they'll honor their negotiations or their contract of what they have with Sony and probably extend it for those 2 or 3 years. But me personally, I just don't see them keeping it on there. Maybe something's changed because of the numbers that they've seen coming from this Call of Duty. But I don't know, Don. I still just think this is smoke and mirrors. This is just him just trying to skirt through the CMAs. What do you think? You believe Phil on this one?
Well, my earlier take on this, and this is not like, hey, I was right sort of thing. Like this, just time
Right.
will tell if I'm right or wrong.
Right.
And if I'm wrong, I'll just be like, shrug my shoulders. I was wrong, and if I was right, I'm right, right?
Right.
But the theory of, and this has always been my theory, anything that's continuous will stay. Anything that's new, iterative down the road, eventually
Mhm.
will not be on their platform. In direct line of what Phil's been talking about. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. Right.
So continuous thing, like for example, the battle royale mode. If that thing this stays continuous, I can see that just staying there. They just keep iterating on it. They keep adding new skins or whatever it may be. To be honest with you, I don't play a lot of Call of Duty, so I'm not as familiar with it. That I can see, but then eventually I can see when the contracts are up, them just releasing the main game and campaign on their existing platform. And it's not like Phil is making it so it's difficult to acquire the game, right? Because you have streaming as a solution. Let's say you're a gamer on a budget. Nothing wrong with that, right? You only have one console. You don't want to buy a second console. I get the thing, but is it really that expensive for you to obtain the game? You can literally stream it in regards to that, and whatever type of device that you feel like it's necessary. So it could be your PC, a tablet, it could be your TV going forward, right? There's rumors of hardware attaching to older TVs. So there's a lot of things kind of in the works of what's going on here. So um, I'm just not sure. I'm not sure. On the surface, it just depends on how people interpret what he's saying. If that makes any sense. So I think it's continuous. It'll stay on there. I think if it's a new iteration, eventually when contracts are up, they'll move on, and that's in line with what they've done so far with their acquisitions. Because if you think about um, Minecraft, it's a continuous game, so they don't just take it away from a platform. They just let it live on that platform and let it continue to be its thing. And so they're just good stewards of the product. So I mean, who knows? And do you think maybe they'll do less Call of Duty games going forward? That's the other question
Yeah.
too.
Oh no, I definitely see that. Warzone will be the one thing that's consistent.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's the underlying situation when Phil says what he's saying.
Yeah,
I think that Warzone will always be on PlayStation for the foreseeable future because that is the cash cow pretty much. Um but COD after that contract is up, like for what we play with the single player and for the multiplayer aspect of it, nah. I just don't. It would have been different if Sony played ball. But it's like I've been saying, like, when we've talked and talked to other One Bad Mother and other people, the Blue and everybody. Um, it's like, look, I Sony has, I think, is kind of wore themselves thin with Microsoft, and I don't feel that Microsoft is going to keep playing nice with them. They will do it on the surface, but I don't. But I think um, they've burned a lot of bridges, especially with especially with the trust issues. I mean, it kind of I just don't I just don't see Microsoft being this being playing the nice guy the whole time. Oh yeah, don't worry about it. It was just business. I know that you was trying to stop something that we were trying to do, but it's okay. I just don't see that. I don't see it at all. And I feel that, like I said, Phil is giving us a smoke screen. He's being honest, but in the sense of saying Call of Duty will remain on PlayStation, but he's not telling the whole story,
Yeah,
which means this misleading. But and listen, if they own it, then they can do whatever, and then Microsoft could also do a lot of crafty things in order to make Sony just go ahead and say, well, we're not going to do it no more. Like they probably could raise the price of Ignition compared to what Activision did when they were in charge. Like Microsoft could say, hey, okay, you want this? Well, you're gonna have to pay us a little bit extra than what you did in order for this to happen, and blah blah blah, and then give them stipulations as well. And Sony might not go for that, and then that could also play into Microsoft's favor as well. So I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think Phil is still going to be the nice guy, and Microsoft's going to still try to play that nice card, but
Hmm.
cold-blooded style. If you know what I mean?
Okay, that's what I'm saying. Right,
Yeah,
right, yeah,
right. Like they're not going to
right,
stop being the nice guy.
right.
In regards to that, they're not going to. I mean, they're going to always try to present value to the customer, in regards to that, and bringing the product to whatever they promise it. Because you got to keep in mind, like the reason why Microsoft can do these acquisitions, and the reason why these publishers and studios are on board with what Microsoft's envision is because they are the nice guy. They're like, okay, I don't mind working with Microsoft. Does that make sense? I don't mind if the company is owned by Microsoft, and Microsoft has to keep that up, because otherwise they can acquire as many studios and stuff they want, and if they piss off the developers that make up those studios, they say, screw you, I'm out, right? And then they'll have a situation like Rare all over again, where they have to rebuild the studios from the ground up. So I think Microsoft has to be very, very careful on how they do that. Now, that being said, though, I think Sony is not. They're playing the short game, and I really think it's going to hurt them more than it's going to help them. In regards to this sort of stuff, every studio, every publisher is looking at Sony like, what the hell are you doing? The conversation that I have amongst my peers in the industry is not a good look for Sony, in regards to that. So Sony is slowly turning into what Microsoft was during the Xbox One launch days, right? Where that relationship between studios and the platform provider weren't the strongest. Does that make sense? Because 360 days, Xbox strong armed a lot of developers. A lot of developers didn't like that. They didn't, they worked with them because they were a platform, but they didn't build good, lasting relationships because of that, and that hurt them going into that next generation. Sony is kind of, if they don't watch themselves, is sliding down that same slippery slope. Does that make sense?
Hmm. Oh no, I agree. Yeah.
And then people always forget what a third party relationship is. A third party relationship is a relationship you have to earn. You're not promised it. You're not guaranteed it. You're a platform provider. You provide the platform. Obviously, there's a surcharge to be on their platform. That's how you make your money,
Right.
right? But you
Right.
have to earn them to want to be able to publish on your platform. And you can never lose sight of that as a platform provider. And I feel like Sony's losing a little bit of sight of that, where they say, you owe it to us. And then there's gamers that are caught up in the middle of the argument that feel like, well, I feel like this game should always be on every platform because historically it is. Well, when it was third party, makes sense, right? But when it's first party, totally different scenario, right? So it's a very interesting situation we're going forward. And then here's the thing: let's say Sony, their actions able to stop the Activision deal entirely. Does that magically make close to $70 billion then Microsoft's purse go away?
No, absolutely not. And this misconception that Microsoft is just going to take their money, put it back in their bank or couch, and then just keep it moving,
No.
I think is asinine.
No.
I don't even know how anybody could think that, because in my opinion, I think Microsoft would even be more aggressive at this point, because that's a loss for them.
Well,
a major loss.
Well, look at, if you play a game of poker, right?
Right.
And someone knows you have an ace, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't know you have a joker, a queen. You have a full house, right. And so they showed one of their biggest cards. I have $70 billion. I'm willing to put that down, mm-hmm. But they're not showing what the rest of their hand is. Does that make sense? So
that makes a lot of sense. Right.
So they'll do it with a smile. They'll move forward. They're like, okay, well, the Activision deal didn't work out, right? Then that's gonna taint their relationship with Activision going forward if they stay third party. In regards, it's going to strengthen their relationship with other partners like Xbox. Let's say Luna, like let's throw a streaming service in there. It'll strengthen those relationships, and then Sony's in a worse position because now Microsoft's going to still spend that $70 billion, and they worsen their relationship with Activision. That's not a sense. That's not a good spot.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's not smart.
Right.
It's not smart.
Right.
Here's the thing. Sony, I know you got a certain budget you're willing to spend on development and acquiring studios or increasing your certain talent. Focus on that. Just stay focused on that. Build out your studios the way they are. Retain the talent that you have. Continue to do the products you're the best at, which is story narrative driven AAA quality games, and then expand into those other areas and do it in the way that those partnerships make sense. And Sony and Microsoft's going to do the same thing as well, and you're gonna trade blows. I mean, this is what it boils down to. This is a shift in the industry that's going to happen, and you got to be willing to play ball. And this sort of move, I think it's not the best move for Sony. I think at the end of the day, Microsoft still has $70 billion they're willing to spend.
Right. That's what I'm trying to explain.
Yeah.
To people out there, like, this isn't if you might win the battle, but you won't win the war on that. And I really do appreciate the point that you made, which I didn't even think about the relationship between Activision and Sony going forward, because Activision came to Microsoft in order for them to be helped or be bailed out from the situation that they're going through. And Activision is going to struggle because of it. So that actually makes a lot of sense that their relationship could be tied, and then Microsoft at the end of the day could get the marketing rights back once that contract is over.
Yeah, or they just give it to it for free for just out of spite.
That makes perfect sense. No, yeah. I didn't even think about it that way.
Yeah,
makes sense.
And then you also have, like, I don't know, like every other developer is also looking at Sony like, what, are you going to screw up my deal? Right? Let's say it's not Microsoft. Let's say it's Luna. Let's say it's People May Fly, and they had their eyes on them. They're going to screw up that deal? Are they going to screw up a Square? Are they going to scoop a Square deal with somebody? Like it starts questioning. You're going to like, oh, this is how you're going to play the game, right? This is how you're going to do it. And you're only, the business just looks at your recent actions. They're not looking, last reactions the last 3 or 4 years, and they're going to be looking at it like, what is this leadership doing, and how do they approach this stuff? So, and here's the other thing too. Like, let's be honest. As much as Activision's a good get, it also is it's a mess.
Right, it's a
It's a
pain in the
mess of a
ass. Yeah,
company.
yeah. I mean, just because that's what you was gonna say. It was a pain in the ass. That's what you was gonna say.
Yeah. Like, look at the shit that's going on there, right? Like, and this is something
Right.
I've taken a hard stance way early on.
Right.
You've told people that, yeah, Don told you many years ago before this all became public knowledge, but there's still new
Right.
allegations coming out with it,
Mm-hmm.
and that leads
You
to
did.
what I'm saying is this is a cultural issue. This is not just Bobby. But I don't think very highly of Bobby, right? But this is a cultural issue within Activision. People need to understand that, right? So sometimes when bad habits are done in an environment, other people pick up those bad habits and they carry on, they pass that torch, right? Microsoft has to quench that. I mean, shit, they're gonna have their hands full. This is a mess to inherit, right? Like it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a lot. I mean, I have a lot of respect for Phil, and that's that sort of thing. I don't know if he has it in him. to be honest with you,
We'll see.
take it on, and we'll
yeah.
see. And I welcome anyone to prove me wrong, because a better work environment for everyone that's there, I think, is a net positive. And something needs to be shaken up in that sense. But in a lot of ways, this is a nightmare scenario to inherit. There's a lot of money to be made, but it's also it's a big headache.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you just got to be honest about it. And so,
Well, and a question too on this: if the deal did flounder and didn't go through,
mhm,
what's going to happen with Bobby Kotick? Like, I mean, he's still in charge. He's willing to bow down because of the payday that he's going to get from
yeah,
Microsoft. Well, ain't nobody else is going to offer that type of money to Activision. And maybe they could, like, it may have been an Apple or Amazon, but do they want to invest that type of money overall? Because really, all the thing people really want is the mobile aspect of it and Call of Duty. Everything else is kind of put on the wayside. Will they feel like that'll be enough value? I think it would, but what's going to happen with Bobby Kotick? Like, I mean, because at this point he's saying, look, like he's stepping down on his own accord. Nobody can make him step down. Now we'll see what these other allegations and everything that's popping up
well,
with that.
I will say
forced,
this:
but what's going to happen?
he's just trying to run out the clock. He's trying to get that golden parachute, and
Yeah,
I wouldn't be
yeah.
surprised if he leaves the country. Like that's the harsh.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he's out. Yeah, no. That's out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's gonna have a nice little island,
Oh, yeah.
right?
He's gonna be. Yeah, he's gonna be.
You
good.
living on a yacht in the open seas where they don't.
Nobody can go see him. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean that's the harsh reality and then again, Bobby is probably maybe 10% of the problem. That's the harsh reality, and people don't realize that. The bigger issue is the culture within the company. Does that make sense?
Well, I think it's an industry issue as a whole, but I mean that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah, we've had
another time.
we've had that.
Yeah, we've
talk.
had discussions about that. Right,
yeah, what's going on there? But
right.
In general, like he only represents a certain percentage of the issue. Is what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and so like he's gone doesn't like make the problems magically go away.
Right.
So it's it. Then again, I think this is the wrong move for Sony. In regards to that, I understand it hurts to lose properties. I understand what percentage of revenue that generates for them, which is not a small amount. But in the long term, this is a bad move across the board. In regards to that, you have to look at the repercussions of what's going on. You have to think about the repercussions of your partners. You have to think about the repercussions, of all that sort of stuff. And I don't think they're thinking clearly. I don't think their investors are thinking clearly in regards to that. And I think Bobby, not Bobby, but Sony's acting out Jim Ryan in particular is acting out basically on the board's interest. Does that make sense? And in the investors' interest, and not necessarily. I think Jim knows better. I don't take him as somebody that is that short-sighted, right? But the problem is he can't present a good enough case to the rest of the board a good enough case to investors that this is the wrong thing to do, and so therefore, everyone's got a boss, right? Even him, and so
Everybody's got a boss,
so
right?
he's doing what he can within those means, but you know, I don't think this is going to be a good move for
No,
them.
no, no, it's not.
So
It's not. No, for sure.
yeah.
All right. Well, that was a good point right there. There was something that I forgot about it, but I'm going to bring it up right now because I thought this was interesting as too, and this is something that's added to the show today. And that was Sony's earnings, right? Like, okay, because last week Xbox's numbers got revealed or whatever, and everything was up. Um, Everything was up except for the sales of that was down by 3%, and that's understandable because of the fact of the lack of first party.
Mm-hmm.
So compared to what happened in 2021. But this was the thing that was getting a lot of people up in all crazy on the internet, was the fact of when Phil Spencer made the point of saying, "Look, Game Pass is profitable." And so people are like, "How is it profitable at 25 million when other people are saying you need to be at 100 million and all that stuff?" And I I feel that honestly that they have over 25 million. I feel that they got a little bit over 30. They're at 30 or a little bit over 30 for me, my opinion, for them to say that with confidence that they're profitable, but other people think that they're lying. But earlier this week, I'm saying Nintendo, PlayStation's numbers earnings came out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's down all across the board. And what's alarming to me, it's not about PSN,
Well,
the
okay,
PSN situation.
break it down. So what are they down in? You said across the
Okay,
board,
so
but
yeah,
like,
right. That's what I was going to do.
what does that
Right.
look like? In
Okay,
regards
so
to
basically, PlayStation sales flat year over year.
hardware,
This is three. Yeah, yeah.
it's hardware sales. Okay.
Well, yeah, hardware sales 3.3 million. 45.4 million PlayStation Plus subscribers, down 4%.
Okay.
It was like at 40, and it was down three. It's down 3 million.
Okay.
It's 62.5 million in software sales, down 18%. 102 million PSN active users, that's down 2%. And the thing that caught my attention with this was the quarter first party title uh like sales. And it shows right here in the earnings that altogether in the second quarter, it's like eh, like 6.7 million in the second quarter of 2022. Like, wow, that means that Gran Turismo 7 and Horizon Forbidden West just didn't gravitate. Now, I don't think it's because of the games itself. I think it's because of that $70 price range. What do you think on from your perspective? And I understand that subscription numbers are going to go up and down,
Mm-hmm.
but why do you think that the uh the with the PlayStation Plus subscription is down by 3 million? Is it because of the lack of having the first party titles come day and date or earlier, or do you think it's something else? I mean, because what
Well,
PlayStation said what
does
their
that
problem
money?
is that people are starting to go outside more and the pandemic is over. That's
Well,
that was their point.
yeah. So I mean, is that money including third party sales?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things to factor in. There's a artificial spike during the pandemic when it comes to gaming, um, that exists in all aspects. Paying for services, buying individual games, um, just all that sort of stuff. Because it's even streaming, like streaming gaming content, was a spike during that time as well. So yeah, there's an artificial inflation that's there. Then you also have a situation where you're aging out of one generation and going to another generation of hardware. And what you always see with that, traditionally in the industry, there's, when I use the word aging out for a reason, because there's a certain segment of gamers that just don't reinvest into gaming. That happens. I hate to say it. We've survived several generations of gaming. We're going strong as gamers, but there is a percentage of people that leave, and so that's an issue. Now, I think that issue is compounded by the price of the newer consoles. Does that make sense? And the availability of the new consoles is another thing. And then when you have things like Horizon Forbidden West and you have Gran Turismo, the reality is if they never released those games, they still would have outsold PlayStations in that time frame. So all they're doing is generating more software sales, but with not the hardware out there, or not the vitamin B shot of interest in the hardware. Does that make sense? Because a lot of times when people buy new hardware, they get excited about first-party titles to really show off what they purchase. And so
yeah, because that's right. Both games are on. Well, I don't know about Gran Turismo. No, Gran Turismo is on PlayStation 4, I believe. I know that.
I haven't been keeping track, to be honest with you.
Definitely, Horizon Forbidden West is on PlayStation 4, but I believe that Gran Turismo. I'm going to check right fast, but go ahead, continue what you're saying.
But I don't think that also hurts them. Does that make sense? Like that, I don't think having an older consoles is hurting them. I just think that super interest in the lack of ability, the people that are willing to forefront more money for things, they're just not invested in that same sort of way. And then you have this summer. I mean, there was definitely a big downturn in the economy as well, and it's sliding down that slope. So people look at things that they don't need to invest money into, and gaming unfortunately is not a need as much as I believe it is. It is not a need. So I think all that stuff contributes, and then you have their competition offering value for money. That's the other thing too, right? So like you have someone that's willing to go to another generation but's not willing to spend $500, but they'll spend $300. Does that make sense?
Right.
They're like, oh, well, I'm not going to buy this newest game, but I can buy Game Pass for a year. That starts making a difference. Oh, wait, my controllers are cheaper on this platform. Wait, my games are being now released at $70? This is $60? Most people don't even recognize it, but when they go to, like, say, a physical copy of a game, they go like $70. I'll just buy something else at $60. Right? Or something else that's on sale, because gamers are going to do, or consumers are going to do whatever makes the most sense for their pocketbook in regards to that. And it's weird because I'll compare it to like alcohol, right? In hard times, alcohol still sells. Right?
No doubt.
People want to feel better about the situation at hand.
Yes.
Alcohols are kind of recession proof, right? But but who gets hurt? The top shelf.
I was gonna say top shelf get hurt.
Top shelf is they have to wait out the bad times.
Yeah, Wild Turkey and you know what I'm saying? And
the alcohol
E&J, they Irk and Jerk, they're gonna be all right.
The alcohol that's served in recycled plastic. It turns and burns, right?
Oh yeah, that cheap vodka that I'm scared of. That's like $3 when I go to the liquor store. Oh my God, no! I don't know. That might be propane. I don't know what that is. Propane liquid form.
Yeah, but clean engines with that shit. Anyways, so but that does well, right? And you can take the same example in the gaming, right? So if there's a more budget-friendly way to continually be invested in gaming, that does affect you. No, I'm not the good example of that, right? I have a the new 4090, just sitting there, not even installed because I don't have a water block for it yet because it won't fit in my case. But I have.
I was gonna say, will it fit in your case? I mean, that thing is that. What kind of case do you gotta buy for something like that? They have to make one big enough, but Lord have mercy.
Yeah, it just depends on how your setup is. My biggest issue is I have a radiator and fans sandwiched in the space, and so if I want to keep the radiator, I can't. It's like that much more space I need. So water block allows me to reduce the footprint of it, and I'm able to install. But right now there's a 3080 Ti in there. I have the Series X, so like I'm not a good example of the average gamer, right? Like, I'm somebody that invests a lot into my hobby, in regards to that. So, it's hard for me to put myself in that mindset, but there are people that are like that. And then here's the thing: let's say someone doesn't buy any console, but they start streaming, right? Because gaming's not as big of a priority for them. But if something cool comes out, they'll give it a shot, right? And so streaming becomes a viable option for those people that won't invest. And I call them lost gamers, lost souls of gaming, right? It happens every generation. Now you're able to start retaining those people. Does that make sense? On an off and on basis. Maybe they buy a game, one or two games a year, but still it's one or two games that you weren't selling before. Or they
Right.
sell for Game Pass, and so that adds up over time, in regards to that. And they don't really care about the best experience, so they don't care about the micro blocking, or they don't care about the latency. They just don't pick up on those sort of things. They're not that type of gamer. It's important to understand that there are different levels to gamers, and there's different products that address for each type of gamer that's out there, right? So, yeah, I think that all that stuff kind of contributes to that. So, we'll see what Sony's long. That's why I said I don't think the $70 plan is the right move. I think
I don't either. I really don't. I
so.
mean, only because there was Stray, of course. I mean, you don't expect Stray to be a system seller, but then you also had The Last of Us 2, or The Last of Us, a remake that dropped, which the highest that it charted, well, in the UK charts, which that's where a lot of PlayStation fans use their metric of what's selling well and what's not, which is kind of odd to me, because that doesn't, it's not nowhere near as big as the United States market or whatever.
It
But
doesn't tell the full story either of
it
what's
doesn't
going
tell the
on.
full story. But the highest that it's gotten is fifth place.
Oh,
So like, when I seen like Soul Hacker is in like eighth place, they were like, oh man, that ain't sold nothing. And the fifth place isn't that better either. So I'm just like, well, what's the point of bragging about it? I guess just because of, anyway. But my whole point wasn't coming in here trying to be a shade tree analyst. My thing was just asking, you know, is the $70 price point really? Because I know that what Phil Spencer also said, that look, we can't keep these prices um, at where they're at forever. And so that could mean that they could go this whole generation will be in at $60, or they could just go until when they officially kind of pretty much abandon putting games on the Xbox One. I mean, that could happen next year. Who knows, right? But to me, I think that the saving grace for Xbox is Game Pass. But I feel that also, if it's not the major titles like FIFA, Madden, NBA 2K, Call of Duty, the big games that I always say, I feel that other games are going to suffer behind the $70 price tag. Because I just think that when you look at it overall, it's like what you were saying, with customers looking at this from a different perspective. And it's the same thing with me, like how I feel about God of War, right? Like, God of War is going to still sell great, but you're putting that game out during around, the holidays, and during around Black Friday, and that's going to be $70. And then when people are still haven't got Call of Duty, they haven't got the NBA 2Ks or the Maddens or the FIFAs or whatever the other popular games out there, when those games drop in price to be 50, 40, $35, um, they'll look at it as like, well, this game is $70. Well, I can give me two games for $35 a piece, and then I can just pick up God of War when that goes on sale,
mhm.
compared to waiting towards tax time to drop that game. Say, I'm still going to stand by that. We'll find out when, because definitely if God of War sells gangbusters, which I feel that it will do in the beginning, I feel like it'll still do well. I just don't feel that it's going to hit as hard as what some people are anticipating it do, just because of the namesake. I think that it's going to suffer because of that $70 price range. I think all games is going to suffer for that because of, like you said, the climate within. And this is not just a United States issue. This is a world issue with
Yeah.
the inflation and everything else that's
You
going
shut
on.
down the
So
world
it's
for
crazy.
2 years. It has consequences. I mean, that's the harsh
Right. Well, and
reality.
also there's a
Yeah.
war going on. That's
Yeah.
it's a lot of countries is out there spending, help funding for this war. So
Mhm.
I mean, there's a lot of other things out there that's going on. So I mean, it's just one of these things that's I think that's just problematic. Like you said, other people got other priorities that they got to look at. I just found it, of course, they're a business. They got to say something to kind of ease what their numbers look like. By saying, but generally coming out and saying like, well, people, the pandemic is over and people, they're outside now. There's more people outside. They'd rather be outside than buying games. I think it's because of the price point. That's the biggest thing because gamers, regardless, they can go outside, but they
Yeah.
like to come home and play games
Well,
as well. And I
outside's
think
free.
that $10 price is what'd you say?
So,
Yeah, outside is free.
Outside is free,
Right.
right? That's what they're failing to see. Here's the thing, like I think the numbers would be, if you ask me if Sony had, and I think numbers would be up on both platform providers. If Sony came out and let's say hypothetically had a PS5S, let's call it that, right? And it was $300 and was not as powerful as the other. And they're able to get the hardware out there because that's the thing that the Xbox's advantage is the S is almost pretty much a cut down version of the chip of the Series X, right? So when a chip doesn't pass QC on one, you can really just use it on an S. Does that make sense? So that's what you're seeing there happen. And so they're able to supply the quantity. So that would allow PlayStation 5 to a PlayStation platform to be able to supply more hardware in regards to that. And then gamers can choose what's the right price for them, what's the right set of features, what has the best value for them in regards to that. And so people can be conscious. And it gets people in the door, right? Like how many people we know bought an S first and said, yeah, the S is great. It's a great console, but they eventually get an X, right? They get a Series X, right? So I mean, it's that sort of thing as well. And how many homes have more than, at least here in the United States? I mean, how many homes have more than one television? Like,
oh yeah,
I'm sitting in a room with two ultra wides, a drawing tablet, and a 55-inch television in front of me. Like, this is just one room in regards to that. So I mean, people have more than one television, so the use for more than one console makes sense for a lot of homes. So there's just a lot of things that I think the traditional way of looking at gaming, there's nothing wrong with that, but you do have to have your eye on some of the future, and you do have to have a customer first perspective going forward, and how to retain other customers outside of just your most loyal customers in regards to that. And then obviously getting more customers and not burning your loyal customers is also key too, because sometimes companies forget their loyal customers as well.
They forget it. Yeah, they definitely do. They do.
They go for the bigger bag, right? So they screw it up.
Yep. So, all right. Well, before we jump on to talking about bags, because I want to talk about the PlayStation VR 2, I do want to ask you your point on the subscriptions for, and also I need to make a correction. It wasn't 3 million subscribers that left the PSN network. It was I think it was 2.4 million. So even if you round it up, it's still a little bit over 2 million. So it's not 3. So I don't want to let people think, oh, look at it. No, I don't want people to sit there and say that I'm trying to add a little extra to the pain for Sony right now, but for PlayStation right now. But it's what it is. But I did
see that number being tossed around and people celebrating like.
Yeah, no, it's not
like that's
celebrate.
A little. It's a little weird. Behavior in regards to understanding you got a favorite platform, but you don't need to rub salt in the wound. Like the number, it is what it is, and Sony obviously looks at that number and goes, got to do something about that. You know what I mean? They're like, right. They're being honest behind the scenes. So like, I don't look at those numbers going down from either platform as a positive thing as somebody that works in the industry, right? I want as much health as possible in regards to that. And so I just hope Sony finds a way to retain those customers. I know what they could do. They can start putting their games on their service with if your first party single player games.
do it within 3 months, or you know what I'm saying, a month to 3 months, it'll be fine. You'll be a lot better shape. I understand that you want to get that money now, so that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm giving the grace of saying 3 months, or you know what I'm saying, or you know, a month would be. I just don't ever. I just don't see that. But 3 months, that's the perfect time to put that in there, because I mean, once you can bundle whatever. I mean, they can kind of pick and choose what they want to. But for the smaller games like Stray, like Returnal, other games like that they're going to be having coming onto the platform going forward, that why not day and date? That brings more attention and want to your service, because you'll be making more money from your service than you would when somebody would want that game and would consider maybe getting it day one, but they're just going to most likely wait for a sale anyway for it to get to the price, to the desired price they want. So I just look at it from from that perspective. Just go ahead and, you know, bite the bullet. I know what you said, but you've changed so many narratives here within the last 3 years. It doesn't matter anymore, because their fan base, they're the loudest fan base. They're just going to continue to support whatever that you do. So they'll
Well,
be upset about it, but they'll still support it
well,
regardless.
Microsoft still sells first-party titles, even though it's in Game
Right,
Pass, right? Like,
right,
I mean,
right.
I don't need to buy Forza Horizon Shut Up Edition, but I did because it's a game I
Yeah,
enjoy and I get a plenty of playtime out of it, right? I'm still playing it
right.
today. So,
Mhm.
like, if it's a game that people want to have that reassurance that they own it, um, that they will buy it in regards to that. So, for example, if I had like a service like Game Pass on PlayStation, I would still buy God of War, right? Like it's one of my favorite
Right,
franchises.
right.
I would want to own that in regards to that. So, I think I think it's a short term outlook on it, and the longer you take, the harder it is to peel off that band-aid, right? Like it's gonna get worse for you. So you know, come up with a solution. It doesn't have to be exactly what Xbox is doing, but it needs to address, you know, it needs to address that, because there is a value that your competition's offering, regardless of how you feel about it, um, that you're not, and so you can't just leave yourself vulnerable for so long. It just doesn't make sense. So,
No, it doesn't. Okay, so but the question I was going to ask was, do you think Game Pass is over 30 million? And if it is still at like 25 million, do you could that possibly be profitable for them? I mean, because they're not, regardless of what people think, it feels lying or not, but he can't lie to his investors.
no.
So obviously you got the Forbes, you got Wall Street Journal, you got all these publications that are about investment, not about the gaming
Mm-hmm.
console war garbage. They're not going to sit here and throw out reports like that if they, you know what I'm saying, because I'm sure that they have people that has the inside scoop and knows as well. So if they're making a profit on that, really is 30 million around where that number was, because Sean Layton and others were saying 50 million had to be. There's other that were saying that it had to be over 100 million. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't think they understand the business model. Like, here's the thing:
Hmm.
like, even like developers or sign up, they don't know the whole business model of how they're doing it, right? Like,
Right.
they have discussions of what makes the most sense for their game, because a publisher their vested interest. They're looking at theirs. They're not looking at Microsoft's vested interest. They're looking at
Right.
their invested interest, and so they negotiate what makes sense. It's the same thing with, say, like a small independent developer. They're just looking at what makes the most sense for them, if that makes any sense. So it just depends on what that investment is, and guess what? Not everyone gets the same deal on Game Pass. Like
No.
that's not how it
No.
is. Sometimes they're like, what, we'll forward you a bunch of money to get your product done, or we'll help you with some sort of technology. Like there's different things on the negotiation table that are just not dollars. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
That
Right.
also happen as well. So, um, and then not every developer is happy with Game Pass, like, but the majority are. Does that make sense? And sometimes they'll test like a game, and it'll be on there for whatever the agreement was, like say 3 months, 90 days, and next thing you know, 90 days is up, and you're like, oh, I guess that didn't work out for them. And then a month later comes back, and they put 4 more titles on Game Pass, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
there's an invested interest that publishers are seeing. I would say
or they leaving, then come back.
that happens too. As I said, not every
that's happened. Yeah.
not every developer is happy with Game Pass. Like, that's I mean, but I would say the majority of them find a business model or something with those relationships with Microsoft that makes it work for them. In regards to that, and it has been overall positive experience. I don't know if I would release my product on Game Pass or not, but I'm definitely open to the conversation when that time is right for everyone involved in regards to that, and because I'm curious, what can I make it work? Because I'm all about, like, I have to make my money back, and obviously I'm not in it for free. But at the same token, if we can add value to the consumer, that's a net positive in my mind. So and there's more gamers out there, so there's no reason why we, with the increase of that pie, that we have to continue to charge more, right? That's the reason why prices have inflated. And so maybe the $70 is a reflection of that pie not growing big enough in regards to that. So collectively, if we as an industry lower that barrier entry, make it so more gamers are involved in the process, we can not only keep games at the same price, but also drop them, and then developers still make their money. You guys save on a penny, right? And everyone's still enjoying it, because I think gaming also plays an important role in society. I don't think people underestimate, like, what a relief that is for people, right? Like, like when they have a stressful day at work, they can just play a shooter game or play this sort of game. It's more of a relief, stress relief for most people. There are those gamers, that that lose their damn mind when they're playing games and rage, but that's not the majority of gamers, to be honest with you. So
Okay. All right. So let's move on and talk about the PlayStation VR 2. Of course, they revealed it I believe sometime this year, or it was last year sometime. I can't remember on that. But everybody was anticipating the price. I remember I've said it, I can't see it being no less than between between $400 and $500, no less than that. Well, then they released the price. The price point is $550.
what's the specs on
So
them?
okay, so let me go ahead and try to
Because
look for
that
that.
factors into the price. That's it's important
Right,
to point that out as well. So to be fair,
let's go ahead and find that, because I was just on it. Oh, that's the wrong one. Let's go this. So I will say this is that while I'm looking at it, I'm looking for it. That mostly everybody, especially the people that are invested into VR, they're saying that the specs meet up to the price point. It's just that, again, I think, for me personally, that that's a lot of money. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Regardless, it's still a peripheral at the end of the day. And I understand that the specs is this and that. But the one thing too that I have a problem with is that this thing is that Sony is not gave the option yet. So it most likely will probably do it later. But for right now, when that releases in the beginning of next year, it will not be PC compatible. And I find that to be crazy, especially when they're now starting to put more games on PC. I don't know what their thought process behind it is, but I mean, I'm looking at it right now. Okay, so here we go.
Yeah, that's a missed opportunity, because they could have they could have applied it to, say, their own launcher, right? Their own storefront.
Right.
So,
okay, so here we go. Let me read the specifications. Okay, so it's the display method is OLED, panel resolution 2000 by 240 per eye, panel refresh rate 90 hertz, 120 hertz, lens separation adjustable, field of view approximately 110 degrees, sensors, motion sensor, 6-axis motion sensing system, 3-axis gyroscope, 3-axis accelerometer, and it says attachment sensor, IR, proximity sensor, the
Mm.
cameras, 4 cameras for a headset and controlling tracking, IR camera for eye tracking per eye, feedback vibration on headset, communication with PlayStation 5, USB Type C, audio, uh, input, built-in microphone, output, stereo, headphone jack. And then it talks about the controller specifications. So it says the buttons, it says right PS button, option button, action button, circle, cross, R1, R2, like pretty much the the same that you would get from a PlayStation controller, but it's just in, I guess, handheld form or whatever. Sensing, tracking, motion sensor, 6-axis motion sensoring system. Of course, the 3-axis gyroscope, 3-axis accelerometer, uh, captive sensor, finger touch, detection, IR, LED position tracking, feedback trigger effects on the R2 L2 buttons, haptic feedback by single per unit port, USB ports, Type C, communication Bluetooth, uh, and it says version 5.1 battery, built-in lithium ion rechargeable battery. Those
Okay.
are all the okay.
And how much
So
is
your
it going
thoughts?
for?
550 in the United States,
Yeah.
and in places where that follows, I guess, off the US dollar. In Canada, other places like that is going to be 650. So it's going to be, it's going to range different prices. But what's your thoughts? I mean, from every, like I said, the people that are invested into VR, they feel that that all the specs meets the price range. But do you feel that at this point in time that this is a smart move by Sony to bring this peripheral out? Well, the headset, the VR headset, it's still a peripheral in my opinion, but um, out and then put it at this price range, and we still don't know the price of the video games. So, because they still haven't released any of the prices of those games, even though they said that there are 11 games that's going to be available, I believe, at launch when when the VR2 comes out.
Hmm. Well, I mean, I look at it like a lot like Elite controllers, or or
Mm-hmm.
whatever the new PlayStation version of an Elite controller. Totally not necessary. You can totally not have that peripheral, and you'll do just fine. Does that make sense?
Right.
And that's how I feel about VR. I know people that are really into VR. They're really into VR. They'll say like you stand on the top of a mountain and it feels like nothing else before. And then when anyone has any conflicting views on it, then they said you just haven't tried VR. And in reality,
Oh
probably
yeah, I got a lot of that today.
yeah.
Yeah,
The
a lot of
reality is I've probably tried more VR than most people in regards to that. I have companies that send me free VR headsets for a reason. Let's just leave it at that, right? So
that. Hmm.
in VR headsets you can't even buy on the market. So the problem with VR is a couple different things. Yeah, they keep selling them. It's a peripheral, but the engagement numbers are not what you're getting as you would compared to other platforms. Does that make sense? And then you have VR's experiences that are unique. They're like their own unique platform, right? So you talk about the PlayStation VR. Well, it's not really a PC related experience, right? It's more you have to have a console. Now you're walled off to these particular games that are there. Well, it happens
Right.
on PC too. Like there's certain VR games that are only playable on this headset versus that headset. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's a very splintered experience overall that's there. It's getting better in regards to it, but at the end of the day, like the VR experience, the best VR experience is when it simulates what you do sitting down. So like a racing game or say a flight simulator. in regards to that, where you're in the cockpit and you look around and it makes sense, right? But if you walk around in a first person world, they do like the teleport thing. It's very jarring. Does that make sense? You're not
Yeah.
walking around. Yeah, you pick up something, but your hand phases through the objects half the time in regards to that. So it's almost like the VR experience is very much like really pretty graphics. You enjoy it for what it is, but it has a effect that it becomes same old, same old. Does that make sense?
Right.
And I don't think it appeals to every audience member. Like, people try it just for the novelty thing, but I don't think a lot of people come back in the same way you think it does. But it also has interesting aspects, like Meta just released a new VR headset that costs twice as much what the PlayStation
right,
one
1,500,
is.
yeah,
15
yeah.
or 3 times as much. So
yeah.
like, and it's a cool headset. There's actually one coming to me. I didn't ask for it, but one's coming to me in regards to that. So it's one of those things. I have VR headsets. I don't use them. I don't play on them. I do some testing and stuff like that because of projects I've worked on in the past, that sort of thing. But I just think it's a really good novelty experience, or it can be used for more of the sector of training people to do certain things, that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, it's still a novelty, and it just doesn't have the same mass market appeal as like a television does, or a tablet does, or whatever display, at the end of the day. So I don't know why PlayStation's doing it, to be honest with you.
Well, I mean, obviously they've invested into it.
Of course, yeah, but I don't know why.
They invested into it. They wanted to be ahead of the market. They felt like this was. It's no different than like the Kinect or the PSP or the Vita or something like that. Like nobody's. I'm not tripping about them.
But the Kinect's no longer
staying
around,
with it,
right? Like,
what'd you say?
The Kinect is no longer around.
No, the Kinect is no longer around because of bad management from Microsoft. Because that thing would have.
The market doesn't support
it. So now
at the end of the day,
I disagree with that. This is where I disagree with that, because the reason why it died is because of their marketing strategy by forcing it on their consumers. If they had it out there by itself, I think that it would be niche, but I still think that it would still be it would still be around.
No, 3D depth infrared cameras exist today. They exist on an iPhone, right? But people don't use it in that same application as Kinect in gaming. So that's what I'm saying is, some of these peripherals have a shelf life. Does that make sense? Of application and use. And I understand the argument from Sony's perspective on the PSR VR1, right? They want to get, there wasn't a lot of VR headsets on the market then, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Now there's a lot of VR headsets on the market.
There is. There's a lot of competition.
A lot of VR headsets, and they're all these walled garden sort of. A lot of these are walled garden experiences, and so to create another walled garden, asking closer to $600 for a customer, or $500, however you want to round the number, right? I just don't know if the market's going to support this. In regards to maybe I'm wrong.
I don't see it personally.
Yeah,
I mean, I would for them. I hope that I'm wrong, but I don't see it, and I'm trying to think of it from a logical perspective. I mean, that's a lot of money.
Let's say you have a reasonable PC, right? That's VR capable, and this is on the same price level as other VR experiences, but you have a bigger library to choose from. PSVR is not going to be my first choice. Does that make sense? That's the harsh reality. Yeah. Right. And then and I know a lot of people that have VR headsets. They have multiple VR headsets for their PC, so they might as well just go that route. I mean, PC is kind of owning the VR space. I mean, that's the harsh reality.
Right.
And so, I mean, if they're able, and I'm not trying to dog on the specs or anything like that, because the specs are respectable. But if they were able to getting that $300 price point, I think maybe we'd be having a different conversation, right? You know what I mean?
Right. Right. Right.
In regards to that. So I just, I just don't know why they did it. It just,
No, not for that price. No,
yeah,
not for that.
yeah.
For me, like, I agree with everything that you said, except for the part about the Connect. I still think the Connect would have been, I'm not saying the Connect would have sold as much as it did on the 360. No. I'm just saying that I think the Connect would have still had life just because of the IPs like Connect Sports. Oh man, what's the game? The dancing game, Dance Central, stuff like that. I think that those games, and then of course, like you got the third party games out there that also like Just Dance and other games like that would work well with the Connect. I still think the Connect would have still been alive to this point. Um, I have to give it to the industry for them to keep continuing to invest into VR because I mean, as a person that invested with the Nintendo VR back then, and that's the reason why I kind of just and I've
You did
used
Virtual
VR.
Boy?
Yeah, I did Virtual Boy. I did.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
well, because this is my thing. Like,
and you can see other colors outside of red now? Like, damn.
it was. That's the reason why I don't care about VR anymore.
People don't realize the motor that was in it.
Oh my god!
Actually, just and it started to sound like a cell phone when it has the rumble motor and it's on a cheap cell phone. It kind of rattles the phone. It's kind of like that inside there.
I bought it for my kid as an excuse for buying it for me. My son never used it. He never even put it on. I used it and I'm like, I wasted a lot of money on that thing. But anyway, but that, I mean, I know technology is so much far more advanced. I finally put some VR on a couple of years ago, and I've done it 2 more times because my son he got the Vine after whatever Vive or whatever. And I tried it. I think it's cool. I think it's cool. For anybody who loves VR, I am in support of you guys. So I'm happy that the industry is still continuing to do this. But again, for Sony to not put that, to not make that PC compatible day one, after it's been over 2 years that the PlayStation 5 has been available, I don't know what they're thinking on that. Their console, listen, the console market is so different than the PC market, and the casual market is frugal, not as frugal as the PC market. But the one thing about you could give PC gamers is that if they enjoy something, they're willing to spend. Maybe not so much for the games, but for the hardware. And for the hardware, they'll definitely spend so they can have the majority of stuff. That's why
the economics are different. So
the economics is different. Right.
It's more invest more in hardware than software.
Yeah. So, and so for me, it's like when people go and look at that maybe had the PlayStation VR 1, and they're like, okay, well, I want to upgrade because I had a really good time with the first entry. I want to get the second entry. Okay, so they already most likely probably have a PlayStation 5. Then they look and they see this, man, look, I'm paying more for this than I am for a PlayStation 5. That logic right there is gonna seep through their heads. That's what they seep through mine. And I don't even care about VR like that. Like, what? You know what I'm saying? I get the tech and all of that, but the first thing that people are going to start saying is that I'll wait, and that's what people did when the PlayStation VR first came out. It didn't sell very well in the beginning. It started to sell once the price got to, like you said, that $250, $300 range. Yeah, so that's the sweet spot. To where people, I feel that if they want to take a chance on something, 300, 200 to 300 is the perfect spot for them, right?
Yeah.
For consumers. PC is so different. Yeah, you have I forgot how much that new VR that's going to be. I think it's what, $2,000 or something like that. I know it's very expensive.
There's always different ones. I mean,
it's different. But what are the ratios, the numbers of those gamers who have the most expensive VR on PC out of a billion customers out there?
It's not that
very,
many. Very
very small. It's very small.
Well, and here's, you kind of hinted at it, what is VR's biggest competition?
Oh,
Think,
itself, pretty much. Yeah.
no, TVs.
Oh, you thought. Oh, okay. I
Okay,
thought you were talking about like
so think about
the
this.
companies within
if you're-
themselves, because there's so many VR and
yeah,
you said the games and
there's
stuff
that.
like
That's a subcategory, right? But
Okay.
if you think
Okay.
if you
No
think
problem.
about, you got $600 to spend. I'm rounding up on. I'm not trying to show shade at Sony or anything like that. I'm just saying $600 to spend.
Right.
Get you
Right.
better TV for $600, right?
Mhm.
You have $600. Do you buy a new television, or do you buy a VR headset? And I know you can watch movies and stuff like that on VR, but you buy a new TV, it's for everybody in the home.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
At the same
That's
time,
right.
so you can watch movies, you can play video games, you can do all these different stuff. The value proposition of a television at $600 is way more than the value proposition of a VR headset for $600. And,
Yep.
and that's what people need to understand. So that's why it is such a novelty in general, in regards to, and that's not meant to be a slide or anything like that. If you enjoy VR, enjoy VR. But you're in kind of a unique spot. And you also got to keep in mind that the effect of being transported doesn't last for everybody. And I would say the majority of the people that are enamored by it don't continue to be enamored by it. Does that make sense? There's a smaller percentage. So the value of the market is just small in regards to that. And so that's just why I'm so confused that Sony is going after it in regards to, and don't get me wrong, Microsoft even announced they're going to be doing something with in partnership with Meta, because they own people don't realize this, they own part of Facebook. So that's the reason why that partnership exists in regards to that. So we'll see. We'll see where all this stuff kind of goes. But you know, everyone's trying to be the go-to place for VR. I just don't know. It's kind of that many will try, very few will succeid. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's that
I mean,
that position that they're all in. So
right. Yeah. No, I wish it well. I just think that like their strategy is. I look at the PlayStation VR strategy from Sony, like I did for the Kinect 2 being just locked down with the Xbox One.
gotcha.
I look at it the exact same, because that extra $100 is what's really put Xbox in a bind. If so much, the messaging and all that didn't help, but it was the price point. You had a $400 console here, you had a $500 console, and what Microsoft's and Xbox, their excuse was because of the Kinect. People are like, nope. And that's how I look at this situation. Well, does it have PC support? It doesn't? Okay, well, all right, that's fine. That's cool. Maybe they'll eventually change that.
Wait, how many games are on it?
Yeah. How many games? Well, yeah, how many games? Well, how much are the games going to cost? How many games are going to be on it? So let's say that the game, how many games are going to be on it at launch is going to be satisfactory, but how much are the games going to cost? If it's anywhere from $50 to $70, that's going to be a problem. And then the biggest caveat to me is the people who were supporters of the PlayStation VR 1, and their games can't be transferred over. So you're putting me in a position to where I have to buy this, and then what are you going to do? Do remasters and then charge me 40 to however much that you're going to charge? It's going to be more than how much the game would cost on the PlayStation VR at this point, by double, maybe even triple. So you want me to commit that type of money into something new, and it's falling short on appeal. That to me, I'm saying, I'm excited about the peripheral, but everything else, I'm saying, and even if I can get past the price point, even if I can get past the fact of the 11 games and things like that, I don't think people can get past the point of the cost of the games, and that you can't take your library with you. And then, so that to me that's what's going to hurt it.
Yeah,
overall.
if it had the PC support in the library, it would be a different conversation.
Right. It would definitely have a different conversation.
I think it would be a different conversation.
Because it'll be like the console. It's like the PlayStation 5 and the Series X. You can't you can't buy something that has that type of technology or that type of tech for the price that you're getting for those consoles compared to what you would buy for a PC. You'll
Mhm.
be spending more money. So I get that for what the strategy of what Sony was doing on that. But it's like what you were gonna like, I'm pretty sure what you're gonna say is like, look, you know, but you're hampering and cutting off a bunch of people that would probably be excited to get your peripheral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So
just a tough spot to be in. I think for and here's the thing too, like diehard PSVR guys that you know within the gaming community. Obviously, this is subjective, but uh,
mhm.
when's the last time they talked about VR? When's the last time they talked about you know
That's a good
the
point.
excitement of PSVR 2? Their excitement about how many people like you. I mean, just within like the reviewing community of gaming, right? They were so hyped about PSVR. They couldn't stop talking about it before it came out, right? And they got to try it, and they were enamored by it. I don't see those same conversations happening about the sequel. So the same amount of interest is just not there. Does that make sense? The
Yeah.
competition's greater. Um, there's libraries are fuller. Better, the subjective thing, right? But they're fuller. They say it's comparable to other VR headsets for the money. Well, that's not the console business model. The console business model is the value is greater for the money.
Mm,
Does that make
great
sense?
point. Great
Right?
point. Great point.
If you're
Yeah.
going to build like something equivalent to an Xbox Series S, it's going to cost you more than $300. Build something more than say a PS5. It's going to cost you more than $500, right? On the PC side of things, you also the Series X, the same thing. It cost you more than $500 to build that in a PC, and that's fine. The PC is not about value in that sense. It's about flexibility. So like that's the thing. So now you have the PC market that can offer better value, and so I just don't. I mean, and I don't wish anyone, like I don't know. This has PS Vita vibes all over it. To be honest with you,
Oh, don't do that, Don. Don't
yeah,
do that.
yeah. This is
Yeah.
just
So
like it's a cool piece of tech at the time, but it just didn't hit the market, right? It didn't hit that masses that it
the
needed to.
PlayStation held on, let it ride for a while. I give them that.
But it just didn't have the
Yeah.
support to continue it. Is
It just
what I'm
and
saying.
and
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 so
that's what amazes me, right? Like, I mean, the PSP was amazing. The Vita is amazing.
yeah,
I still plan on trying to pick up a Vita, uh, just because I never had one, and I really, but from people that have had one, and I got the chance to play on one, I'm like, oh, I got to get it, but I never did. You would think that they would like just dog out Nintendo's handhelds, but they couldn't get nowhere close to them. It's impressive that Nintendo can just come out with cheaper hardware,
they understood the
um,
value proposition
everything
for the
else.
money. Does that make sense?
Right.
You can
Right.
outperform
And
somebody.
that's a great point. That's a great point.
You
That's a
can
great point.
outperform somebody, right? But if it's not
Hmm.
the right value proposition for the money for what the experience the consumer is looking for, you're going to be
Yeah.
outsold, and then that's
Yeah.
what happens, right? It can happen the
Yeah.
other direction too. Like for example, like
Hmm.
the reason why Nintendo is not in the same position as Xbox or Sony is because they stopped chasing that dragon of the most powerful console, right? Or the things that come with the more powerful console for the value,
Hmm.
in regards to that. And so they're just like, we can't compete in that space. We'll compete on the portable space, and now they consolidated their portable and console space into one product, and that's where you see the Nintendo Switch right now. So it's interesting. Then again, we'll see where the VR is from
Right.
here. People
Right.
that buy it definitely enjoy it. Honestly, I would like to hear your feedback on it based on the
Yeah,
previous,
I definitely will too.
and what other VR experiences you've had and how they compare and all that sort of stuff. But it's nothing to be laughed at. It's not like it's a bad piece of hardware or anything like that. It's
No.
just it's an odd spot. That's all it is. So
Yeah, no, I think it's crazy as hell to pay for that, but that's just my own personal preference. But deep down, I want it to succeed because I know that there's gamers out there that really enjoy that, and I don't want anything to be taken away from gamers. I just feel that like, that price point, that ain't gonna hit. Not that ain't gonna hit right now,
Well,
bro. That's just
if
not.
it's not successful, there's plenty of VR out there, so
Oh,
they'll
I'm not
have
gonna I'm not
they'll
gonna
have
kick
what
it
they're
on their
looking
fan
for.
base. I'm not gonna do that. I feel bad when anything doesn't hold on or maintain. So that's neither here nor there. But anyway, all right, let's go ahead and move on off of that. Let's talk about something that we've talked about. This the Square Enix situation. Well, this situation gets a little bit more crazier because of not only what Square Enix said last week in regards of saying that the Japanese market, um, they don't see it as viable as they used to. They're just not generating enough money, so they need to broaden their horizon. So a lot of people
Yeah.
took a lot of uh, took different stances on it. I know that I did. But also something else that got a little interesting too, and of course this is going to definitely make uh, things a lot more interesting as well, is the fact that when Square Enix sold off the western part of Square Enix, they sold it to the Embracer Group.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Embracer Group, they took it on. They're working on titles and they're talking about everything else. Well, one of those studios, which was the Montreal Square Enix Montreal, they changed their name. They did everything. I guess looking forward to they even have a game that's going to be coming out. Well, the Embracer Group shut that studio down. Took those devs that's over there and took them to Adios, and pretty much now like it's done. So I guess that one potential game, I guess it's still going to release, but they just bought, they just acquired those studios, and now all of a sudden they just said, no, we're cutting ties. Now I know that there's been reports that saying that some of the people from the Embracer Group, they don't like mobile gaming at all.
Mm.
That could be a part of it. But could this be something that's a little bit, that could be stretched out a little bit further, where like my boy Sir X Man, I've got to give him gotta give him a little bit of props on this. I've heard other people talk about it like the other day or something like that, but the first person I heard from was Sir X Man, was giving this thought process of saying, well, what if Microsoft was to go after either Embracer Group or go after those SquareSoft entities that was just got purchased from them. Maybe this was a deal all overall, or maybe this is, or do you think that that's far fetched, Don? I mean, what is your whole thoughts about this?
I don't know what their business plan is, Embracer Group. And I think the industry as a whole is just kind of watching with bated breath. What are they doing? You know what I mean? Because they're so new on the market and they acquired so much, but we don't really. They haven't been around long enough for us to kind of understand what's their thought process in regards to that. And then the bigger question is cell phone gaming plateauing to some degree? And they're looking at that talent and say, you know what, it's better to take that same amount of money and reinvest it in this area. Does that make sense in gaming in general? So it could be a lot of different things as far as their thought process goes in regards to that. Maybe they acquired them because they just wanted the talent. They didn't really care about the project they were working on. Does that make sense? So they just let it finish out and say, hey, we're not going to greenlight your next project, but if you want to stay on board, here's the sign-on bonus to move over to Montreal in regards to that. And they know with a certain percentage of people they're going to lose them, and then a certain percentage of the people they're going to be, yeah, I'll take the bigger paycheck, right? And then they move forward from there. So it's just one of those. It's one of those things. It's very interesting to see. I mean, I'm keeping my eye on Embracer Group, what they're doing. 505 Games. I'm keeping my eye out on them, what they're doing. These are new players in the market. They're not Capcom. They're not EA. They're not. It's hard to predict what their thought process is, and they don't have the same amount of experience as these other companies do as well, which could be a good thing. It could be a bad thing. It can be taken either way. But there is more money flooding into the market. So the question is, what are the fruits of the labor in regards to that. We'll see. So it's, I don't know. What's your take on it?
I I don't know. It's like I've said before. It's like by the end of this generation, everything is going to be so upside down. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
That
fair enough.
anything that we, yeah. Like, I mean, everything is going to just be wild. I mean, anything that we used to know or thought or think, we're just, it's all going to be blown up. I mean, I, I just think that, because I told Sir X Man when he brought it up, I was like, man, no. I said, hey, I just think I know that you want Tomb Raider on Xbox and things like that, and I because I know because that's one of his favorite franchises
Mm-hmm.
of all time. I said, but I just don't see it. I said, you just bought him. Now you see what Square Enix is doing, and then I kind of want to get your thoughts on that. But I don't know. I just think that they probably just made a move, but it does in a way get you to thinking, could this be a setup for something else? I know that they want to get into all different types. They still probably are going to want to buy more studios and things like that. But what's going to happen when these games start dropping and these games doesn't live up to expectations? Are they going to be, because I don't know their track record on that yet, because I know that they're still fairly new.
Because there is.
But what
none.
if these games don't? Yeah. So what are these? Yeah. So what are these games going? If these games don't start hitting, let's just say that, for instance, they do. Because they're going to still continue to do Avengers, and let's just say that they're just bleeding out money for Avengers, and Avengers still just isn't, it just isn't hitting right. I mean, are they going to look to sell? Are they going to shut it? Are they going to shut that down? Are they going to continue? I mean, Tomb Raider should do fine. I mean, but
a lot of companies, people don't realize this with publishers. They know a certain percentage of them are going to hit and a certain percentage are not.
Right.
In regards to, they know that regardless of how good the product is, that's part of the business model. So when a company like has a game that hits really, really well, it subsidizes a lot of your losses on the other. So when people start thinking, oh, they're making this much profit, well, overall they may have lost a bunch on this product. They might have lost a bunch on this product, but they don't know what's going to hit until they release all the stuff. Does that make sense? And then they're willing to maybe take on a loss if they can get a projection number that can continue to go up. In regards to that, and eventually after X number of them, then they either phase out the studio or they dissolve it into something else. I mean, EA has a history of doing that sort of stuff, right? Capcom has a history of doing that sort of stuff. So like, Ubisoft, all these companies. So I just don't know what their main game plan is. All we know is they've been buying everything. They're like, who is this company and why is their checkbook so big and why are they buying all this stuff? Like, we don't know in regards to that. And so, and I think partially they don't know either. They just want to be, they want to throw their hat in the ring in regards to that. And they have some ideas. But I think Embracer Group is going to be looked at like EA's looked at today, 5 years from now. Does that make sense? People are going to be familiar with them. Yeah, they bought a bunch of stuff. They're familiar with them. They know what type of products they have. The name is in common conversation amongst gamers. You bring up Embracer Group, people are going to recognize the name. Right now, like, no one really even recognizes the name. They're like, who they buy? What I mean? Like, they just don't know. So it's interesting. I like things that shake up the industry as a whole.
Me too. At first I didn't know how to take the shake up, but now I'm kind of like, okay, whatever's whatever. Let's go. Let's see what's happening. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And here's the thing. So let's say they screw up on Tomb Raider. Right? The several different iterations of Tomb Raider. It's not very good. Tomb Raider is a strong enough brand that thing can be sold and someone else take it over and revise it again.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So there are certain products like that may have some missteps, but they can recover on another iteration of the product. I look at Doom that way. Like, there are some Dooms that are on I think the 360 generation. They were not great. They were not good games, but they went back to the drawing board, and you look at the latest two Dooms that came out. They're phenomenal games, right? So, that's just how this stuff goes. Sometimes they try some, it doesn't hit. Sometimes they try something and it's a hit. So, but just like I'm very pro Microsoft acquiring people, I'm very pro Sony acquiring people, even Nintendo, even in Embracer Group. This is a good thing. And then, to be honest with you, also too, it generates a lot of interest for people also go to independent. They're like, okay, I don't want to be owned by this big conglomerate. I'm going to go independent. That's fine too. That just brings more products to the market. So, I don't think it's a negative thing. It's just a don't know. It's a big question mark of where they're at right now. So,
Yeah, no, it is a big question mark. Now to the situation with Square Enix. I know when I first heard it, we were talking about it on GRG Friday night, and I was kind of like, I was lost for words, because I'm like, you don't hear something publicly be announced like that. That's usually behind closed doors, and then you hear rumors.
mm-hmm.
But for Square Enix to actually come out and say it was just baffling. And like, I know it's almost like, it's kind of like when we started off, when we was talking about the whole Activision Sony situation, and how if Microsoft lost the deal, that Activision and Sony could be at odds
Mm-hmm.
going forward. I see the same thing between Square Enix and the Japan market, because they're proud people. Like, you're trying to tell us, look, man, maybe your games just aren't good enough for us to want to keep investing into it. Maybe you're not putting your games more on mobile, or trying to put your games into trying to follow the market of what we do out here. And
Japan's really slow to adjust to when somebody else finds success in a place.
Right. And I mean, and so, yeah, right. I mean, because you go back to when Halo first kicked off, right? And then Call of Duty started kicking off. Then here comes the slander against first person shooters. And then after that, then they started to try to work on first person shooters. And then when they just didn't land, then they went back to square one. But it was, the West looks at games differently than what the East does. Mm-hmm. That's fine. But to me, for Square Enix to just kind of do that, I feel that, for one, they are looking. I still think that they're in negotiations with Sony or with some other entity. I'm still thinking Sony, to get purchased. And I think for them to say that, maybe they're trying to sound like what Sony sounded like before they took their gaming division and take it out to United States, and they just kind of want to embrace that ideology so they could kind of get the West on their team. And then also, I think that the success of what Sega has done for now, opening up the floodgates and letting these Japanese games, or the games from the East, to come over and be ported over to the Xbox, et cetera, and the Western market can actually get to see, you'll get the chance to play these games other than just being on the PlayStation or sometimes on Nintendo. I think that also pisses them off too. I don't know. What's your thoughts? I just still don't know how to gauge what they were saying.
They've always been weird. Like they always talk about certain games underperforming. What does that mean for them? Right.
Well, a lot of games they say underperform.
Yeah.
Right.
But then they're highly praised. So the difference is, so like, are they spending too much on the projects and not getting enough on the return, or are they making money but they're not making the same amount of money for their investment as other people? Does that make sense? So the return on their expenditures is not as high as others. They might be operating in, for example, in the black, right? But they're not operating as much in the black as, say, somebody else. And so they start looking at it from that perspective. Maybe they look from the perspective is like, okay, these are great games. We're selling our Western developers so we can buy other Western developers. That's a possibility in regards to that. But I don't know. I think it's just culturally, it's always hard for companies when they've grown and become a successful company in a certain region, and they try to capitalize on other regions. Does that make sense? Like, it's just difficult. Like, there's a cultural barrier between Japan and, say, the United States. Hell, there's a cultural barrier from Canada to the United States, right?
Yeah.
Right. So So
this continent has got differences, yeah, for sure.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like
Got Mexico and Canada.
yeah,
Right.
so that's the harsh reality. And so I think, if you want to be a successful publisher worldwide, you have to have, I think, separate parts of the company allocated in those countries and operate and make decisions in those specific countries, right? So you can't have, let's say they had a Squaresoft here in the United States. You can't have the Squaresoft from Japan dictating to the Squaresoft in the United States on a project. You just can't do it. It just doesn't. They clash, right? There's conflict there. Does that make sense? You have
Right.
to make it. If you are a company in the United States, you have to cater to the audience you know the best, your Western audience, right? And if it has a little more universal appeal and you launch it in multiple different markets, absolutely do it. Not a problem. I mean, look at one of my favorite games. You look at we're just looking at Forza Horizon here, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they try to make it a nationwide product. They make it as a racing game, like how they look. I mean, all their locations half the time are in Europe, right? If that makes any sense. They make a game how they feel like a game should be made. And when you do a good product, I think it does carry over multiple markets. But when you try to front on another culture, I think sometimes it just doesn't come across in the right way. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
so if I make a product and I'm like, man, I would think the Japanese market would really enjoy this.
Right.
I culturally, I'm not there. I'm not there on a day-to-day basis. I'm not interacting with the those people in that country. So, and there's also a language barrier and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of cultural difference, right? So, like, it's just really hard to say, hey, I'm here in the United States, I can make a product for people in Japan or China or anywhere in the East, in regards to that. So I think if they want to get the Western market, I think they need to have a Western station publishing arm. It has their own purse strings. They have their own say on things. And I think they'll find a lot of success and build out something there if that's what they want to do. I just don't know. I just don't know if they want to stick in the game or not. I just don't know what's going on with them.
Yeah.
So
No, you said that. I that would be insane. Like, I mean, it almost, that's why I was saying like Friday was, and then what we was discussing, like they almost do sound like they want to be purchased. Like, look,
they sound like
here,
Konami.
yeah, right. Like,
Yeah.
or we just gonna do, yeah. So I just don't know how to take it. I've seen some people and their points can be valid as well, where they're just like they just want to express that they want to start to the world market instead of just having a division
Mm-hmm.
of just only just catering to one side of the equator, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I get that, but if that's the case, why did you get rid of your Western division? Like, you got rid of all of them. That's what blows my mind. Like,
well,
I get that, but that still don't make sense what they did.
Well, if you're gonna believe them on face value,
Right?
if you believe them on face value, it sounds like they sold those other companies because they had their eyeball on something else and they couldn't get them.
Ooh, Bungie or something else? I
It
don't
could
know.
be.
Yeah,
It could. Who knows?
right.
I mean, hell, it
Who
could have been.
knows?
It could have been the Warner Brothers. You imagine them wanting to tap into all the superhero stuff, how hot it is over here.
I work with DC instead of Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. That I didn't think about that. I mean, but that's the whole point of having these discussions because
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many, and I love it. I think it's fun. That's why I could talk about this stuff like every week because it's so intriguing, but it's also um we see this cat and mouse thing going on,
Yeah.
but Square Enix Square Enix is full of shit in my opinion. I just don't. I love their games. Don't get me wrong, but you've played the game too long to try to now insinuate, well, we've learned the error of our ways. Well, you continue to keep having games like the Final Fantasies, even though we know Sony paid for it, but you allowed it. You see the numbers. You see that Final Fantasy VII remake is not generated as many sales as Final Fantasy 15. A lot of people may feel that Final Fantasy VII remake is a better game overall, but still doesn't make sense. I mean, this is the reason why Capcom put themselves back, got Street Fighter back into being a multiplat again. Because of course they tried to do it. Sony helped pay for it, funded, and then it was
It's
a
that
disaster.
short-term
They
investment
recouped. Right, that short-term investment,
yeah.
and it's just not. Yeah, it just doesn't equate to what they could have done overall. And they rebounded back by working hard and bringing Street Fighter V to be a much better quality fighter than what it was in the first 2 years. So I don't know what Square Enix's play is, but I just find it really interesting. I don't know what they're going to do.
It's almost like they're not willing to bet on themselves.
Yeah.
Or
like you said, they're maybe tired of betting on themselves.
It could be that. Who knows? Like they could be like, hey, these products are doing good, but they're not doing as good. But let's double down. That's betting on yourself, right? Let's double down, right? Like we're onto something. Let's, let's ride this hype train to whatever conclusion it is. Same thing with signing deals that are short term. Like they get their bag now, but they didn't bet on themselves, right? They're not willing to bet.
People
on
Can Fly understands that wholeheartedly with Outriders.
Yeah, so it's interesting. In regards to maybe they'll defer back to just a studio and not a publisher.
Wow.
Maybe that's because that's what they were originally, right? They originally
were Squaresoft.
Yeah, they originally were a studio. So, maybe they're end up being a bunch of studios, and then they front the bag from a bunch of different publishers. They'll have EA publish their stuff, or let's say Ubisoft, Sony, Microsoft, whoever it may be.
Embracer Group, Tencent,
who's wherever's willing to front the money for their project. And then they would have several studios, right? But they, there's places they have several studios and a publisher. So maybe that's the route they're going. Maybe that, and maybe it's a better fit for them, to be honest with you. Because they're not willing to
go back to what they originally used to be.
Yeah, they're not willing to place those big bets on themselves anymore, right?
Well, because I mean, there's a game that I'm really I want to play, but I just ain't going to get over the price because and that's Dial Field. Dial Field looks really cool. $70 for that game, $60-$70 for that game. I'll wait for a sale and then I'll pick it up, and then of course the numbers is just ridiculous. Like it hasn't did anything on PC, Switch, or PlayStation. I'm saying, or Xbox. I believe, because it's on Xbox as well. It just didn't do anything. So there you go, having another situation where that game, where they have one particular game that will become multiplat, and then they revert back to keeping other games to be exclusive with their bigger titles. That's the thing that blows my. Okay, like for Octopath Traveler 2. Octopath Traveler 1 is on everything. Like, well, it wasn't on PlayStation, so maybe PlayStation gave them the bag and say, look, make it exclusive here, and then you could bring it to Xbox later. Xbox later, which because I still think that Octopath Traveler 2 is going to happen. But let's just say Octopath Traveler 2 doesn't do what it's supposed to do. It's like what you said. Okay, you got the bag at first, but then you got to make these reports again saying, well, it didn't do what it was supposed to do, and now we don't know if we have enough funding to put that game onto Xbox now. And then now you're going to have a group of gamers that are upset because regardless of how many of of how many Xbox series are out there overall, and then also for Xbox One gamers out there, that's still a huge chunk of gamers that potentially that would add more money and revenue to your game. So I don't know. Their strategy is so weird to me.
Well, I just don't think they're not willing to take those risks, right? The risk inverted. If you really look at them, the risk inverted in regards to that. So like, anytime you take a bag of somebody, right, and they offer you something along the lines that's close to what you think you would make the sales on the other platform, or to make up for what you didn't sell on the other platform, right? Well, you take those deals because you don't believe you'll sell those. If you really do believe you can sell those and you have the cash on hand, why would you take that deal? You wouldn't.
You
So
wouldn't?
you
No.
wouldn't because you're betting on yourself. Now you may be wrong on betting on yourself. People are wrong all the time on that. But that's the harsh reality. They're not willing to bet on themselves. They've shown a history of that, and which is unfortunate because I don't know. The worst case scenario, Squaresoft, mismanages themselves into non-existence. But to me, like even I didn't play a lot of Squaresoft games. There's such a big part of the conversations like you and I are having now, as me as a gamer growing up as I was younger. Right, I can't imagine a world where they don't exist in regards to that. Right, I don't play Final Fantasy games, but man, I can tell you how many conversations I've had about Final Fantasy games that people that just love them. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what their future is.
Yeah, I don't know either. It's crazy. It's wild. But anyway, all right. Great show. Great stuff. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about before we go ahead and get out of here? Anything on your mind or whatever? So
Nothing I can think of. I'll probably think of something right as we go offline.
right after when we get
Right.
off here,
So,
yeah, yeah. Like, oh, man, I forgot about this. Yeah, we're still trying to make attempts to play Crackdown online. Last
oh,
week it was not very successful. We only got one game in. The week before it was actually pretty successful. We played for like 4.5 hours, like between 3 and 4.5 hours. Really fun. We still didn't have a full 10, but for people out there that's interested, DM me on or Don, DM me at KMega 4 on Twitter, or you can hit me up on Xbox Live. I'm saying KMega 45, or even I'm saying if you watch this, or you or you check it out later on my channel, whatever the case may be. I'm saying put your gamer tag in there and say hit you up when we're gonna try to do it, because we're gonna try to do it every Saturday, and maybe if we can catch a Sunday early, then we'll try to do that if
and it
Don has time available at that time or
and
whatever. If we
event,
can do it during the week, I'm cool with that too. So it doesn't matter.
well, eventually too, we'll also move on to other games on Saturday. As well.
Oh
We'll
yeah, yeah,
always
yeah,
won't
yeah,
always be
yeah, yeah,
Crackdown.
yeah,
So yeah, get involved.
yeah.
To be honest with you, all we need is six. You need six people to
Hmm.
start a match. Now it's obviously gonna be funner when we have 10 total.
Right.
But and then I would also say, and this is kind of my Sea of Thieves principle, right? Sometimes you just start the game, keep it open. No, no one wants to be the one person that's playing the game, but once you see multiple people playing, right, more will come. So if you're there in the party and there's only four, just keep inviting your friends, whoever would be open to it, and you'll get to that six. In regards to the first night we did it, it was a lot of fun. It was refreshing because it was a game that I don't think a lot of us played a lot, to be honest with you. So
And then other people, they were excited because they got achievements and stuff like that. So
yeah,
I mean, I didn't. I mean, I like achievements. I like trophies. I like the achievements you get on Steam, whatever the case, on Nintendo, whatever. But it's not the all end all for me. I just would love the experience because the game is fun. It's not the best multiplayer game you've ever played, but it's just fun. We had a blast playing it. And I would like to get more gamers to experience it while the servers are still up, and people can get a chance to experience it for themselves and see how they feel about it.
yeah, for sure.
So, all right. Well,
Well,
where can they find you at, Don? It's the end of another session. We are getting close to 50 episodes. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Out of how many years? The point is the train is still rolling. So you know what I'm
it's
saying? And
it's
and
the most
that's what it
inconsistent,
is.
consistent podcast on YouTube.
Ever has to be ever. But
Yeah.
anyway, where can they find you at, brother?
Um, the best thing to do is follow me on Twitter, which is a Don_KTR. But I also have a YouTube channel, which is Don Gaming Live, which is my live streaming channel. And then I also have another channel on top of that, which is where my kind of more consistent kind of talking head content, that I'm building out a library of stuff just so I can start releasing on a more consistent date and I'm pretty committed. I mean, I literally have a studio dedicated towards YouTube content at this point. So I have to have some sort of return to justify to my wife. You know what I mean? So that stuff is coming. So definitely follow me on either one of those channels or on Twitter to follow up with what I'm doing. And if you see me gaming, if you want to join the game, man. Let's it's fun to talk about games, but it's much funner to play them as far as I'm concerned. So.
Okay, no doubt, no doubt, no doubt, no doubt. As for me, you can catch me on my channel, KMega405. I know I have been a fraud. I have been preaching this gospel of me going to stream, Fight Night Sundays coming back, all this blah blah blah, and I ain't done a thing. Now, you know what I'm saying? I have reasons, but I promise it will come. I'm not even going to give a time frame yet. I'm just not going to do it because I've been saying it for the last, I don't know, 2-3 weeks, and I haven't. I plan on Saturday, whatever that we're going to be playing to stream, and then once I think the juices started flowing, I will be back. You know what I'm saying? But it's about me just trying to get it started because I am so enamored and caught up into Persona 5 Royale that it's just consuming me. I'm itching right now to get done, get up, go move around, fix me a salad, watch the news for about an hour, and then get to playing some Persona again. So that's where I'm at. So you know what I'm saying. So I don't know why I'm trembling because this is a long haul. This game is a long game. It is not like you can beat it in 50 hours and you're done. It's a game that's going to take at least about 190. I'd say anywhere from 150 to 250 hours to beat. So it's got that much content, but it's a really good game. I'm glad that I got the chance to actually fully go through it. I didn't get a chance to do it when I was on the PlayStation 4. Only played about 10 hours or so. But anyway, thank you guys so much for coming and checking out the Dev and the Gamer. As usual, man, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, I think that's it. Everybody have a good one. Till next time, when we be inconsistent and then just pop out of nowhere, we'll see you guys later.
Yeah, and on a side note, everyone harass Mega to start streaming. So
oh my goodness,
just harass that man. I know it's your favorite fan base is people harass you. So
I do. I love people harassing me. I love it.
All right. That being said, guys, I'm out.
Peace.